Hello and welcome everyone. This is a new episode of The World Today where we are going to discuss as usual plenty of items and plenty of banners which were published on national and international sites. But before we start, let me first welcome our dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Ihab Alkharrat, member of the Political Bureau of the Social Democratic Party. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
My pleasure, ma'am.
And we are going to start immediately from Al Ahram Online, where we read that a big number of the parliament are ready to discuss the controversial law of demonstrating. Sir, regarding this and regarding this law in specific, when it comes to demonstrations, I don't know if this is this was by chance a coincidence or no. There was a lot of strikes and demonstrations in France, for example, and it's ahead of the Euro 2016. And there were clashes yesterday which erupted in a way in which police interfered with the tear gas and stuff like that. So there is a law to organize demos or even strikes in all big powers, in all developed countries. And we are just want to be included, no more, no less. But you know about Egyptians that we are very much passionate. And when it comes to the sons and daughters, it's, I should say, sensitive. Taking into consideration what I've said about Egyptians as people. How do you see the way the parliament are going to deal with this?
Well, first of all, I have to say that many people do not recognize that we always had a demonstration law. The law that was in effect till last year or 15 months ago was the one put by the Brits, actually, just before the World War I, and it was put together in order to suppress the 1919 landmark Egyptian revolution. However, of course, it failed to do that. The current, nobody objects the principle of having a demonstration law. There is no one that objects that. However, people were saying that we should postpone the final formulation of the protest law or the demonstration law for some years until, and keep the 1914 law until we as a society agree on the parameters of this law. The National Council of Human Rights have 13 or 14 definite objections and suggestions to adjust the current law, and I think these are fair enough. Nobody would imagine that anybody supports carrying of guns, chaos,
chaotic situation in general are refused and rejected by all of us.
For example, traffic block or something like that. However, again, nobody would accept that the only way for you to protest in a Friday, for example, is to go to El Fustat Park where nobody is there and protest, while the roads in Fridays are open and you can organize a very well-structured demonstration, because it was proven in any democratic society. As you mentioned, in France, for example, we were
France was such an example for the last couple of weeks, sir, and on all levels, by the way.
And economy is blooming in France, while there are demonstrations, while there are strikes, because it was understood that the expression of popular anger, popular protest is a healthy sign to allow the government to grow. This was my coming
question. Is it that healthy? I mean, the youth would say, how I should go to take a permission from the Minister of the Interior, for example, to make a demo or to protest, while I'm going to protest against them?
You should. I think that this is an objectable article. The Constitution has it clear that demonstration is by not taking permission, but just by notification. However, the current law says notification, while actually it means permission, because if the Minister of Interior objects, then you cannot do it.
Because the Minister of Interior has another duty, which is to protect the demonstrators themselves.
Yes.
If I don't know at the Ministry of the Interior that you are gonna protest here or gather here, how I'm gonna know, or when I'm gonna interfere if something wrong happens?
I agree. So I would say the law has to say by notification, and the Minister of Interior has to have check-ups upon his own acts.
Yes.
So it will be clear that he is not just making excuses to send the demonstrators in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
However, demonstrators should not be allowed, for example, to block traffic, to ruin,
to carry guns,
to carry guns, to carry
attack civilians,
Molotov bottles or something like that, attack civilians, block the shopping and marketing season. So this all has to be taken into consideration, and I think that what the Parliament has to do now is to adapt the suggestions of the National Council on Human Rights, which are our party's suggestion and all the suggestions of the democratic forces in Egypt.
Let's move to the Daily Star, where we go to Libya this time. Libya unity forces bombard Daesh in Bastion Sirte. Well, forces loyal to Libyan unity government bombarded Daesh group positions in Sirte with heavy artillery Friday, a day after thrusting into the extremist stronghold in the Mediterranean coast. The loss of Sirte, the hometown of ousted Muammar Gaddafi, would be a major blow to the extremists at a time when they are under mounting pressure in Syria and Iraq. I'm here to repeat this, under mounting pressure in Syria and Iraq. Do you believe in this first?
I believe that I have to note that both in Sirte and in Tikrit and Fallujah, the strongholds of the two fallen dictators, Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, we have a flourishing Daesh movement. So this means that the ousted dictators, forces and militias have joined the extremist religious fascists. The dictators were not religious at all. They were supposed to be secularist fascists. Now the same kind of fascism is joining Daesh. So this is one thing, that Sirte is a stronghold of Daesh, and Fallujah Tikrit is a stronghold of the same group.
Terrorist group.
Yeah, terrorist group. Yeah. I would say that there is a growing pressure against Daesh.
By whom, sir?
By the whole society, and particularly...
No, because I just want to hear to say, or to pay tribute to, whether in Libya to Khalifa Haftar and his men, or in Iraq, for example, as you've kindly mentioned, Fallujah, the Russia and US airstrikes, in addition to the local forces there. I mean, with the intervention of the local armies or the local forces, the case became different. So we do not need external intervention.
As a matter of fact,
we here, of course, I mean the Arabs.
Yes, of course, I would have preferred this situation, but the fact of the matter is that Daesh is receiving international support from, I wouldn't say nations per se, but forces that are international. For example, there are suspicions about rich oil sheikhs in certain countries, not necessarily the official government of these Gulf countries, but influential sheikhs there that were caught sending Toyota deals.
Influential businessmen who are eager for oil and greedy for oil all the time, because till the moment the international community couldn't answer this question: who is buying the Libyan oil till the moment?
Yeah, for example, or who is buying the oil from Syria and
who
the
is
fallen parts in
training
Iraq?
the militants to be that much professional, to be able to stand in front of American and US
but there were clear accounts that, for example, hundreds of Toyota pickup cars were bought by the name UAE and Qatar and Saudi sheikhs who are not part of the government, but who are known to be influential figures in their countries. This is a well-known fact. So we cannot ask nationals to fight without international support and regional support, while the terrorist groups are receiving such international support. Having said this, I would say that yes, it is a wise strategy to allow locals and nationals to gather their forces, to arm themselves, to train themselves, and force back those medieval terrorists that are coming against really the civilization and the values of this region.
Yeah, I'd like just to say something. Dr. Ihab, when he was saying sheikhs, he meant top figures. That has nothing to do with religious clerks at all.
I meant princes.
Whoever, top figures in general, maybe high-ranking officials or whatever. But because all the time the word sheikh is all the time coincided or related to religious, this has nothing to do with religion. Taking you to The Guardian, where we continue to read about the Palestinian-Israeli issue. The Palestinians barred from entering Israel after Tel Aviv killings. All crossing from West Bank and Gaza Strip suspended for Palestinians for 3 days, except in medical and humanitarian cases. The Israeli occupation army said on Friday that it was temporarily barring all Palestinians from entering Israel, stepping up already tough restrictions announced after Palestinian gunmen shot dead 4 Israelis in Tel Aviv. Or these were the claims of the Israeli occupation army. Going from bad to worse. And why these things are taking place now right after the French initiative, after what was going on in Paris, despite the fact that it was not a complete success or something, because neither the Palestinian nor the Israeli foreign ministers or high-ranking officials were there to participate. But is it a coincidence?
I would say that the main threat to the racist regime in Israel is a growing population of Palestinians inside Israel itself. This is their obsession. They want to get rid of Arab Israelis, of Arabs who stayed since 1948 and got the Israeli citizenship, of Arabs who are sticking to their homeland although they don't carry any passport. So I think that the main peace initiative and the main peace force that will lead to the resolution of this conflict is to support the peaceful protesters and the peaceful Palestinians who live inside the land. And their main issue is really now where the Israelis is not really the armies of the Arab countries, but the peaceful unarmed Palestinian Arabs and Israeli Arabs that live within Israel. So this is very, very indicative that they were so impatient with any Palestinian coming to Tel Aviv or coming to actually their lands from their grandfathers and from their ancestors and trying to live peacefully. No one of those were carrying arms or anything.
But let me here, sir, mention or focus on the political ground on Israel. After this French initiative flourished, or at least with invitations from the from France to the international community to come to the Paris summit and to try to find a solution to bring the Israelis and the Palestinians back to the negotiating table by the end of 2016. The reaction of Netanyahu was amazing. In fact, to take Avigdor Lieberman, who is a hardliner, even to them, and to put him as a defense minister, even to the extent that 2 of his ministers resigned in objection. Is it a first reaction and then this attack on the ground, as if neither the Palestinians nor the Israelis want peace?
At least from Netanyahu's side, he says, yes, I welcome the French initiative. Yes, I am very happy to go back to the tables of negotiations. Yet he does 2 things. He appeases the hardliners in Israel by putting Lieberman, a very fierce hawk, in the most sensitive position. And number two, in preventing Arabs, as you have kindly indicated in the Guardian News, in putting Arabs aside from growing into Israel. Because if you go into negotiations and you have a growing Arab population inside Israel, then this is your main card to play. But he is ready to sit on negotiation tables as they have always done for the last 20 or 30 years and tarry and give excuses and throw arguments that are totally futile and irrelevant. I think that what we have to do now is not is to change our strategies to support the Arabs and the Palestinians inside
when
Israel.
The Palestinians are supporting themselves first, sir. When the foreign ministers of the Arab countries gathered here in the Arab League headquarters here in downtown Cairo with the presence of Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, he said that they are going to have a unity government, a reconciliation government, and then they are going to go to the elections, and by then they are going to refute these excuses by the Israelis that they do not have a partner. But till the moment, if the Israelis are going to say that they do not have a partner to sit with on the negotiating table, nobody can object.
The incidents, the facts of the matter is that the presence of Hamas is the main hurdle to the Palestinian cause now. Because if you say we will put Hamas aside and have the other Palestinian parties negotiate with the Israelis. The Israelis says, look, but Hamas is a force, you don't have any fight front. If you take Hamas in, they say we will not negotiate with a terrorist group.
And we are not recognized from scratch that there is a state named Israel.
We as Social Democrats have been saying since the 80s that Hamas is bad news, and people were then celebrating Hamas quote unquote resistance, which is sort of a cartoon resistance.
I cannot miss that too. I have also read Ismail Haniyeh asking Egypt to open the Rafah crossing, for good. And he said that he is going to guarantee that it's going to be that secure. Right before this attack, as if he knew that he is going to launch an attack and this attack is going to end with the Palestinians to be banned from entering Israel. I mean, what a political game is played, and for the sake of whom?
Look, our people in Gaza are under a dictatorship and they are living a hardship that is unbelievable to people who did not visit them. I was in Gaza with the UN refugee campaign, and our people in Gaza are suffering under Hamas. So you are between a rock and a hard place. You want to help the humanitarian, to pass humanitarian conditions to our innocent people and to our brothers and sisters in Gaza, and yet you have the terrorist abuse with Hamas. Hamas is the same like the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is ruining the whole case, the whole cause, the whole Arab cause, and the whole cause for development and democracy is jeopardized by these kind of people.
Taking you back to Daesh, unfortunately, but in Syria this time. And from the World Bulletin we read, Syrian opposition captures key land on way to Hope. Syrian Arab forces have continued to take territory in the country formerly held by Daesh in a bid to capture a strategic hub linking the extremist group with the Turkish border. Most recently, the Syrian Democratic Forces have seized 3 kilometers of territory to the northeast of the northern city of Manbij, plus 6 kilometers in the south. These were the statements said or announced by the Pentagon. Regarding what's going on in Syria, till the moment, I do not know how the legitimate forces are able to differentiate between the so-called armed opposition parties, and Daesh. I mean, somebody is carrying a gun. how I can differentiate, or it's according to the hubs or the bastions they are in?
There is a great confusion in the Syrian situation because number one, you don't have a democratic, peace-loving regime to start with. I have to say this clear. Yet you are forced with the most retroactive, the most black fascist movement called Daesh, and different shades of quote-unquote Islamic terrorists on the side of Daesh. I mean, Daesh is the worst, but Nusra is not much better.
Tell you something, they are all the same, the faces of the same coin. I mean, they are mercenaries paid to fight, and that's it.
Yes.
Al-Qaeda, the so-called Nusra Front, Jaish al-Islam, and they have nothing to do neither with Islam, neither with Jaish.
I totally agree. And then you have people who are supposedly carrying the cause of the Syrian people, and who started to be peaceful demonstrators, and then were faced with massacres and had to resort to forced resistance. In the middle of this confusion, unfortunately, the terrorist groups were more ready to organize themselves and to carry the guns and to launch strong attacks. Now we have other forces growing. Do we have enough information? No. Do we have enough data flowing from inside to tell us who is really democratic and who is really for a civil society and a civil nation, and who is just another masked form of Daesh? We lack this in a very unfortunate
But they had a lot of Geneva rounds of talks, sir. If those so-called opposition parties want to really to return back to their country, to have their country back, to be accurate, with the sovereignty of Syria, which we are all looking for as Arabs, why I do not lay down my weapons just to give the opportunity to the regime to know that all those now on the ground are of Daesh?
Because the regime is preparing massacres for these people. I mean, these people will be killed if they put down.
Even with the intervention of Russia, even with the intervention of Iran, even with the UN resolutions.
If they have enough guarantees, they will lay their arms. But they don't trust the Russians enough. They don't trust the regime enough. They don't trust Daesh enough. So we have a very complicated situation. If the international community puts its act together and give these people real guarantees, and the Syrian regime is ready to guarantee a democratic move and guarantee that everybody has dignity and has a choice to live, we will solve this problem. But the Syrian regime was ready to kill thousands and tens of thousands in we have to say this. I mean, yes, we prefer this regime to Daesh, but this is not the best regime at all, and this is not a good regime to start with.
What's going on the ground in many other Arab countries like Libya, Iraq, and Yemen? Libya is not better after Gaddafi. Yemen is not better after Ali Abdullah Saleh. Neither even Iraq is better after Saddam. If I'm going just to take Bashar out of the image, out of the picture in general, should I think that every single case is going to be solved, every single problem is going to be solved, and the crisis is going to vanish? No.
Look, it is a tragedy. What we are passing through is a tragedy. Revolution is not a good choice. Democracy is not the best regime you have. But if the situation on the ground is so black, and that the people has to take to the streets and start a revolution, then this is not a happy ending. This is a very tragic road. And
nobody would know how it's going to end.
And nobody knows how it's going to end. But if the people were driven to this state, then the regime has to be is the one to be blamed first. I went to Libya a number of times during Gaddafi's time. During that time, you didn't have a signpost to sell toothpaste, for example. You didn't have movie affiches. You only had pictures of Gaddafi. The people were under, this is a very rich oil country.
Yes.
And the people were wearing old clothes, not well fed, not well educated, nobody knows English, nobody had a chance to, what is this? This is an oil country, this is a rich country. Why do the people suffer? So these people were really miserable in order, if you go, the Syrian people are very fine cultured people. When you see the Syrian refugees, hardworking, they started businesses here in Egypt, they started from scratch, and they worked hard in Syria, but they were still struggling under a very suppressive regime. They don't deserve what they had. They didn't deserve what they had to live with.
I can just said also on Iraq, sir, because there were many political analysts who would say that what Muqtada Sadr is doing right now with all these strikes against corruption and with the violating the headquarters of the parliament and the office of Haidar al-Abadi and also breaking into the grain zone, many of the political analysts we have, and we have even watched on TV, that this is going to be for the best interest of Daesh, not for Iraq. Because with this division, we are going to lose, not to win.
Yes, I agree that what Muqtada Sadr is doing is actually undermining the whole democratic process. The stark divisions and inability to agree among democratic forces in Iraq is doing the country a very bad deal. You know, I talked to an American expert 5 or 6 years ago. He told me in America it took us 90 years after George Washington, before we reached a good government. They had corrupt government, they had a very bloody severe civil war before they moved to democracy. I hope we don't go through this long tenor.
Yeah, we have 30 seconds, so it's a yes or no question. Who is going to be better for the Middle East and for the Arabs, Clinton or Trump?
Clinton, no doubt. Trump is bad news. Not that I love Clinton, but she's better than Trump.
And this is exactly what Obama said today. I am with her.
Yes.
Dr. Ihab Alkharrat, member of the Political Bureau of the Social Democratic Party. Sir, thank you very much for your input and thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, by this we come to the end of this episode of The World Today. On behalf of Magdi Sliman, Rasha Maghrabi, Yasser Abdul Maqsood, Ilham Mohyi, Fariel Muhammad Abdullah, Ayat Ali Taha, and myself, Nermeen Abdurrahman, many thanks for watching. Have a very good afternoon.